So let's just talk about vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds because Pfizer has just released it's just released an update saying that it tested that group, 2,000 plus kids, and they found the response to be robust of the antibodies, and they've now submitted to the FDA for an emergency use authorization for that age group. So for parents who really want it for that age group, they're very happy. For parents like me who are a little less excited about the vaccine for my littles, unlike for myself, which I got it, I don't know. I'm worried they're going to force it on me as soon as they move past emergency authorization to the permanent. And I don't want anybody to force me to do anything with my kid. I want it to be between me and my pediatrician. Let me ask you about that, because we just talked about in our earlier hour how the LA public schools now are mandating that the 12-year-olds and older get the vaccine or they're expelled. They're expelled. And Dr. Vinay Prasad, who's been on the show, he has a powerful op-ed out in U.S. News and World Report saying that's insane, saying that this is just, there are still some questions around giving adolescents 2 doses versus 1. There's the rare but real risk of myocarditis in some small portion, and saying there are such terrible consequences in forcing kids out of school. They've got to be factored into this lunacy of you take 2 doses or you're expelled. Let me start with you on that one, Dr. Kulldorff. Your thoughts?
Dr. Prasad, for older people, it's a no-brainer to get the vaccine. But whenever we have a new vaccine, we don't know about adverse reactions until about 2 or 3 years after it comes on the market. And of course, children can be very different and more sensitive to vaccines than an adult. So what's key here is that while anybody can get the disease, including children, anybody can get infected. The risk of mortality, there's a more than 1,000-fold difference between the old and the young. So for older people, COVID is more serious, more fatal than the annual influenza. But for children, it's the opposite. It's less dangerous than the annual influenza. So we have here a disease that for children has minuscule risks. And we have a vaccine where the risk can also be very small, but we don't know the exact magnitude. So it's not at all clear that there is a benefit to risk ratio that's above 1 here for children. So I think we should not vaccinate children. If we look at it from the longer term perspective, when this is endemic, the reason that we have so much problem is because we have so many people that are susceptible because it's a new virus. And then it's very deadly to older people. So that's why we have this problem. If we look 5-10 years down the road, the adults always are going to have been exposed at some point. So that susceptible population will not be there. Of course, when you're born, a newborn, you will not have the immunity because you haven't been exposed yet. But most children, most people are going to be exposed at a very young age, where this is not a serious disease. So it would be very, very natural to have COVID-19 sort of take the same path endemically as the previous 4 coronaviruses that we live with on a daily basis that causes a cold in some people now and then.
Mm-hmm. When you say children shouldn't be vaccinated, what age group are you talking about?
0 to 18.
Wow. I mean, you're in the minority on that. I would say, unfortunately, because I don't want to vaccinate my young ones. I really don't, for the very reasons you stated. But I know that's not where we're going, Dr. Gandhi. I mean, already Dr. Fauci said he thinks it should be mandatory, even for the littles. And once we get this approval from Pfizer, if it becomes permanent, you tell me whether you think this is going to be a mandated thing for even 5-year-olds at some point in the next 12 months.
I think this is a really difficult one, actually. I really do. I agree with Dr. Kulldorff. There's no question that children are less at risk. No question. And in fact, we have really hurt them in this country by keeping them out of school. And I'm so grateful that we're back in school now in fall 2021. It is something we'll have to look back and have a national reconciliation with ourselves, that we that we restricted in-person learning, especially in blue states. So I'll never get over it, actually. But
and you spoke up against it at the time, just so the audience knows. You wrote a very public
I'll
op-ed
never
saying this is
deviate
wrong.
from that position, even though people yell at me a lot on that too. We kept children out of school, and that was the most important thing for them, to protect others. Now, okay, so then going back to that question of protecting others, you're right that the real reason for children to get vaccinated is actually to protect others. And the reason that it's important to protect others is there is multi-generational households. They are around older people. And I will just explain to you that there are many vaccines that we give children that are not because children are severely at risk. It's to protect others. So pertussis, mumps, measles, rubella, and diphtheria all are childhood diseases that children can get very sick. Pneumococcus and Haemophilus influenza, children actually are really taking it to protect others. So there really is a long-standing practice of this across the world, and but you have to make sure it's safe. So I agree that the safety is paramount because the safety concerns for children have to be very high if you're asking them to do something to protect others. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that I have a 13 and 11-year-old. I'll be very candid on the air. I have a 13 and 11-year-old. So right in between. The 13-year-old only qualified for the 30 microgram dose. And I delayed his time between doses. I said that publicly because I was worried about the myocarditis. And I gave it 7 to 8 weeks because there's so much less myocarditis in places that spaced out the dosing. The 11-year-old, there was no way I was going to give a 30 microgram dose because he's teeny. And because of that, I will wait for the 10 microgram dose. And I'm really feeling better that it's a smaller dose. And then I'll watch for the safety too. But please know that we've done this before in society, and we really do want to protect everyone that is older too by our own immunity.